All right, joining me on the show, one of the most recognizable voices in sports broadcasting history. He just wrapped up a nearly 3-decade run calling NBA games over at Turner Sports. This season, he will be leading the coverage for Amazon as it begins its first year as an NBA broadcast partner. He is the great Kevin Harlan. And Kevin, I guess my first question for you would be, are you at all surprised to find yourself now calling games for a website that, if you're like me, you probably ordered a lot of shampoo from in the past?
Well, I haven't ordered it, Chris, but my wife has, and I've watched her do it. But hey, listen, great, so wonderful to join you. And we were just talking off our mics here for a second that reading you has been a real joy, and your coverage of the league is incredible, and I'm a fan from afar. So first time we've ever kind of been together on the same platform, but really nice to join you. And it is, I mean, like my first broadcast was when I was 14 in high school in 1974. And, back then, there was a student-run radio station at our high school in Green Bay, Wisconsin, 10 watts, but it covered about 10 miles in all directions. And that was my first on-air experience, and did that through high school, then college, and so on. But never in my wildest imaginations, like all of us, did we ever think what we would see from the internet explosion and where that would lead in terms of streaming, clearly, and where we are here today, talking about these new platforms, whether it's Peacock or whether it's Amazon Prime, that are going to carry professional sports in our country. So at the end of the day, it's a broadcast, and you'll know that with NBC clearly and what you've done in the past. But it is a strange world. Even cable, back when it emerged back in the 80s, was like, now what is this? It's not, you don't get it with rabbit ears on top of the TV. You get it through what, cable? Like what is that? So we're kind of in that same world, it seems like, right now.
Oh, it's remarkable the reach that these platforms have. Like now, everyone in sports wants to be on Amazon, wants to be on Netflix, wants to be on one of these streaming services. Whereas recently, as like maybe 5 years ago, you might have said, nah, that doesn't seem like it's a realistic possibility. But now here we are, where the broadest reach in broadcasting comes from these types of outlets. Your basketball history, Kevin, I was just looking back at some of it. 1982, right? The Kansas City Kings basketball coverage there. How did you get into that?
So I was doing, Chris, a radio show when I was a senior in college at the University of Kansas. I would drive into Kansas City and produce the Kansas City Chiefs radio network pregame, halftime, and postgame, with intermittent, appearances on that, but basically produced it. And I got that job when I was a sophomore in college. Eventually, that led into me hosting a Sunday night radio show on KCMO Radio 810, which is now WHB, but then it was the iconic call letters KCMO, and they had done the Chiefs for years. So I was doing this Sunday night show, and I was also doing a lot of high school football and basketball play-by-play on radio. Did a lot for the University of Kansas on their radio network. And Neil Funk, who is the voice of the Kansas City Kings, had just accepted a job to become the new voice of the Philadelphia 76ers. So the Kings were looking for a new voice. Our station carried their broadcasts on radio. They had heard my work. And as I was graduating in mid-May, my senior year, and walking with my diploma down the hill into Kansas Memorial Stadium for graduation ceremonies, I get back to my room, and on my fraternity voicemail machine was this call from Joe Axelson, the Kansas City Kings general manager and president. And he said, young man, we've heard your work. We're losing a broadcaster we'd like to build for the future. And thus the connection. Our station had been very involved in that. He made the call, and I got the job when I was 21 before I turned 22. And my first broadcast was my first broadcast job out of college, with the NBA Kansas City Kings, which led to a 38-year run in the league, which will now be 39 with Amazon. And little would I know at that age and that stage that I'd be so lucky to be in the league that long and have a network component to it. And I've enjoyed every game I've broadcast since. So, yeah, it happened early by the grace of God, by luck. But I've embraced that position and that opportunity, and have enjoyed, like I said, every game, every player that I broadcast.
Very different landscape back in the 1980s with how broadcasting worked back then. What do you remember about that first season? What stood out to you back then?
I carried my equipment. The station, it was I was my I did what I did was I did 60 games, 62 games on radio on KCMO and the very regionalized Kings radio network. But I also did 20 over-the-air games with Easy Ed McCauley, the great Celtic. Mm-hmm. And Ed McCauley would come into Kansas City or join us on the road, and he would be my analyst, and they would simulcast the games. But on those 62 games that were just radio, I carried a big aluminum suitcase full of all this equipment, and I was responsible for setting it up, tearing it down, making sure there was a connection with our flagship station, and broadcasting those games, but by myself. And there was no computer statistics screen there. It was as close to just trying to plug something into a wall or connecting wires as you could get. It was pretty simple, and it was for most of the broadcasts in the NBA at that stage. And then clearly it has evolved into what it is now with satellite feeds and incredible studio quality noise. But at that time, it was pretty pretty basic. And but again, it teaches you, as I'm sure you did when you started, to be kind of your own guy. And with those steps, I'm not sure that I would have evolved into the luck I've had in this career to now. But that's how it began, and I have great memories of it. It was hard to carry a big, heavy equipment, aluminum suitcase, but was part of the job, and I loved it. At that age, I absolutely embraced it.
You had a long run with Turner Sports. Were able to call some iconic games there. The end for TNT, we knew about it for a while. It was a long walk to the end there. What was it like last season to kind of be calling games knowing that the end was coming?
Leave it to someone who's so good with words like you to come up with a great phrase. It was a long walk to the very end and the finish line. And when the playoffs began last year, knowing that it would be the final year for Turner in the NBA, there was still the excitement of, it really, I don't think had immersed itself in all of our hearts and minds that this was the final run. It was the beginning of the playoffs. We're all so excited for it. But we knew that, with the Eastern Conference Finals, it would come to a close. And as every game passed, the cameramen, the technicians, the audio people, the people in the truck, the graphics people, like all these hundreds of people that are so important for these broadcasts to look and feel and sound the way they do, knew that line was coming closer with each passing broadcast. And we got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the pregame show traveled with us. So there was Kenny and Shaq and Charles and Ernie. So they were with us from New York to Indianapolis as we're bouncing back and forth in that series. And you felt the dread coming up. A lot of these people had been at Turner, like me, for decades, most over 2 decades. And they didn't have anything on the horizon. They were hoping they could latch on with whoever. They were hoping they could stay with TNT, but nothing was set. It was for, like a lot of us, the unknown was creeping up faster and faster with each turning day of the calendar. So those last couple broadcasts were difficult, and there were tears behind the scenes, off the air, after and before games, a lot of hugs. And when you've been a part of something, I was there for 30 years, when you're a part of something that long, and this being in the business, writing or broadcasting or the combination, that these people become your family outside your family. And while we have got a big family ourselves personally, with grandchildren now, those people that you would see every Tuesday or Thursday or both, and then through the playoffs, became friends and became colleagues and became more than just a guy that handled the camera or worked on the audio or strung the cable or typed the graphics. These were people that you saw and were a part of through the ups and downs and the twists and turns of travel and one season to the next and one great game to the next. So, yeah, I mean, if you love the business, and I assume you do like I do, they become more than just coworkers. They become this second family that you really embrace. And it was hard. And I think about them often as the new venture is starting. Some were not fortunate enough to hook on with NBC and Prime, Amazon Prime. Some have stayed at Turner, but others are left looking at a freelance schedule where maybe their schedule isn't as populated with games. It's now more, just kind of connecting the dots and hoping that something works, and their work will speak for itself in whatever capacity. But very tough and emotional. But as I reflected on it this summer, Chris, I would tell you that nothing but wonderful memories in my heart and smiles and good thoughts about what was. And as they tell you sometimes at graduation to parents and grandparents and the kids that are getting those diploma, don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened. And that clearly is my headspace right now. So
when you,
honored that I was a part of all those games, those years, and the companionship I had with those other people.
So when you get the call from Amazon Prime, what's your first reaction?
Well, I was ready to put a period in it because I didn't know, and I had visited the year before with NBC once they got the numbers and met with Sam Flood and all the wonderful people there, and it's a historically good crew that they have assembled with their Olympic and their NFL coverage and all the things they do so well, golf, and so I had met with them. And then really, got into my football schedule and didn't think of it much. And there was some conversation, but I've had almost a 3-decade relationship with CBS, and I'm not sure how comfortable CBS was with that new possibility, but they were good about it. And they didn't put a period on it or a stop sign. They said, this is something we've got to think about. So I really didn't think much about it, quite frankly, to the fall. Then Prime came involved shortly thereafter, and that made sense to CBS, made sense in a lot of ways, and they were incredibly kind and great to begin that relationship with. And then I said, could you just send me a schedule of what it would look like? And they sent a schedule, and I'm looking at the schedule. I mean, I remember it. I had printed it out, and my wife said, can I see that schedule for a second? And I said, sure. So she grabbed the schedule and she goes, you have a pen? I said, yeah. And she began to say, and crossing out some of these games. So I said, well, I don't know that they're going to go for this. I don't know why they would go for this. But I get it. And we've been married for 38 years, and she understands the ups and downs and the sideways movements of this business. We sent it back to him and said, I'm so honored that you'd want me a part of your crew. But I'm kind of at that stage where I'd love to kind of back up a little bit. I've had this conversation with Mike Green a lot about when to put, that type of feeling on your schedule. And this was a natural place at the end of Turner and the beginning of these other ventures to maybe do that. And we didn't hear anything for a week. And I said to Annie, I said, they may look at this and go, what's this? What's this all about? This makes no sense. We need more. We need a full commitment. And it is a commitment, but it's just not the body of games and everything that I've had in the past. And for the life of me, they said, yes, this works. We'd love you to join. And I said, I'm beyond honored to join. And thank you. And for realizing where I am now and what I've done in terms of a very busy schedule, loving to back off a little bit. And they accepted that. And it's been nothing but just bliss dealing with the people there, how great they've been so far. And it's been minimal because of, we're not into the season, but it's right around the corner. And it's worked out well. I'm sorry for a long answer, but there was a lot involved. Like I said, I was ready to let it rest after the Turner run of 3 decades. I'd put in 38 years in the league and 30 of them with Turner, and felt like, this feels like, if this is the end, it feels like a natural end. And then Amazon came in the way they do and are so generous and made it work. And so we're thrilled to be continuing in the league, which I admire greatly. And then with this new broadcast partner, and I think they're going to be phenomenal in how they cover the game.
So tell me more about that, because I think Amazon has done an outstanding job of covering the NFL for the last few years. Their Thursday night football games are as good or better than a lot of the broadcasts that are out there. You've had a chance to talk to people. I mean, what kind of, do you think they're trying to change things in any kind of way, or do you think you can just expect them to try to be a gold standard out there?
Well, I think I'm always, Chris, so enamored with what people do and how they do it. And the group they've assembled at every level of every angle of this broadcast. I mean, these people shouldn't be doing NBA games. They should be sending men to Mars, men and women to Mars. like they're so smart and so innovative and creative. It's not unlike, quite frankly, I said this when we were out there for the seminar in August. I said, the feeling in the room that I'm getting is one that I had back in 1994 when Fox got the NFL rights from CBS, and we all assembled in Los Angeles with Madden and Summerall and Stockton and Matt Millen and Joe Buck, a young Joe Buck, and Kenny Albert and Tom Brenneman and myself, and they had all the Jerry Glanville and Anthony Munoz, like all these guys, and it was brand new, and they had assembled all their technicians and graphics people and producers and directors. And the feeling in that room back in 94 when they got the rights with Ed Gorn and David Hill were like you felt like you're part of something so big and so innovative and so like exhilarating that like, how lucky am I to be a part? So I had the same feeling this past August when they took us out to California, and in that room were all these bright young minds, these talented, creative people that are ready to attack the NBA the way they've attacked the NFL, with innovation and clarity and creativity and like an open horizon, right? Like they see there are no limitations. It's only what can we do, how can we do it, and how can we do it better. And that was the feeling that I got being out there at the seminar, was that the energy and the feeling of camaraderie was just so catchy and just grabbed you in every way that you couldn't feel like so optimistic and so grateful to be a part of something so much bigger than yourself. And that's kind of how I viewed that, and I'm looking forward to what's coming up.
You've been at the top of the game in multiple sports for a long time, most notably the NBA and the NFL. People ask me all the time, as someone that does boxing, and I'm going right from this to a Call a Fight in Philadelphia this weekend. People ask me all the time, like, how do you keep it all in your brain? And what I tell them is, like, I don't know anything about anything else, like literally nothing else. Like, I grew up, Kevin, I was a Red Sox fan. I could have named all 25 guys, Celtics, Bruins, Patriots. I could name the backup punter on the roster. Now, I'm ashamed to admit that when the Red Sox played the Yankees in that playoff series, I didn't even know what was happening. I didn't know what was going on. I'm just so locked in to the two sports I'm supposed to know stuff about. You are expected to give the experience that you're an expert every single week on the NFL, on the NBA. How do you balance it? How do you manage to have that much information in your brain?
Like you, probably you have a daily routine and a weekly routine. And that is what I hang my hat on when I do feel overwhelmed. And I think any of us that are in the business know the responsibility that is in front of us, whether you're covering the NBA or boxing and writing for the historically great SI or joining NBC and working for them. I guess you feel like you begin with a schedule and a routine, which I've tweaked over the years from day to day and what I do every day, but I do something every day. I did the Monday night game in Jacksonville for Westwood One a couple days ago between the Chiefs and Jaguars. And on the flight home, I'm watching the game that I had done Sunday in Seattle with Tampa Bay and the Seahawks and giving I call it my first watch. And I critique that game and type notes just watching it, but not grading it. And then I do my expense reports. I try to type my boards for the next 2 games I've got coming up. I try to read and get a start on my stories. That's on the Tuesday flight home. Tuesday night has a certain feel to it. Wednesday, I do the same thing Wednesday with another set of things I've got to get done. Same with Thursday, Friday. And by Saturday, hopefully that schedule and routine has led me to being very comfortable on my flight to the game. I'm reading the final couple stories, putting the finishing touches on my board, watching tape again of the 2 teams I'm doing, which I try to do all week long. Final grade on my 4th quarter of the game that I've done it. I break my game down to doing the first quarter one day, second quarter the next, third, fourth. And so by the time I land in that city, and this past week it was Seattle, I've got my stories read, my board's finished, I've critiqued my work, I've made my grade sheet, and I've watched enough tape so that when we have our production meeting Saturday night, it's nothing but just, oh yeah, I remember that, underline a couple things here that have been brought up in the meeting, looking at our graphics package, looking at our tape vignettes that we put in the broadcast, hearing what Trent Green and Melanie Collins, our sideline reporter, have got ready to go. And then then I want to get in bed, watch the last couple college football games, and drift to sleep with a good night's sleep, and then wake up and there's Sunday. And then Sunday night, I'm going now head first into my Monday night broadcast of going back again, listening to my radio broadcast from the previous week, which was Lions Ravens, and going back and listening to that and grading that again and getting my board set. Now the boards for radio are a lot different than my spotting boards for TV. TV, it's just massive and notes and all things that will accent the picture. Radio, it's basically the X's and O's, who's playing, numbers, who's not playing, why are they playing, 5 storylines for each. There's not enough room to really get all this stuff out anyway. And I'm working with a Hall of Fame quarterback in Kurt Warner. So, but every day has a purpose. And if I ever get off or behind on those days, I do wrestle in bed at night, getting to sleep thinking, why didn't I get that done? Now I've got to double up on this tomorrow. And so staying on track is huge for me. And in answer to your question, that's what kind of keeps me on mark, on pace for what needs to be done. Every day has a specific meaning.
I have a profound respect for the preparation of the play-by-play guy. In boxing, I watched Brian Kenny do it for years next to me on those broadcasts. Mike Gorman in Boston, I watched him do it for years on those broadcasts. I mean, just the notes, the preparation, the everything that's there. And to do it week after week in multiple sports, that's something. By the way, you got a little...
the business, the one thing that really matters is how did the call sound? Like, how was the touchdown called? What was the interception like? What did you do in that moment? And you can have all these notes, and you know this, you can have all these notes and all these things written down. At the end of the day, you're going to be judged on the call. And that's and that really is what matters most in both radio or TV, is the call, the big Abuka touchdown reception, or Jackson Smith and Jigba's touchdown, and the throw by Darnold, or the throw by Baker Mayfield, or the throw by Patrick Mahomes. How did it sound? What did you say in that moment that really mattered? We become a lot of highlights now with social media and everything else, and that's how a lot of the people digest these games. So the call in those big moments, you hope that all the preparation that you put into it leads to the right words at the right time on that big play. And Popovich, you'll appreciate this down, and you probably know this story, has that famous framed picture on the hallway that the Spurs go past as they go out onto the floor. It's the story of the stone cutter in Romania, and there's a boulder that's ended up in the middle of the road. And we got to move the boulder. Well, we got to chop it, and we got to chip at it, and we got to do it that way. So they begin chipping away, and it's not the first swipe of the hammer. It's not the 10th. It's not the 1,000th. It's maybe the 9,999th hit of that chisel that broke it in half. It wasn't the first. It wasn't that last hit. It was all the ones that led to that big final whack of the hammer on the chisel. And that's kind of how broadcasting these games is. You hope that all your setup all week long and on Sunday and all the preparation you've put in leads to that final hammer hit of that chisel that breaks that rock in half. And it was all, and you know that it was all the things leading up to that that led to that rock being parted, and people can now get through the road. And you're hoping that happens on your broadcasts.
You know, one of my favorite, more recent calls of yours was about a year ago when Jamal Murray made that half-court shot right in front of you in the playoffs. Like, I'm thinking one of myself, like, how often are you actually out of your seat when you're making some of these calls?
Well, sometimes to get that oomph that you need to be, Madden told us this when we were back with Fox in the mid-90s. He said, he told this story, and I forget if it was to a group or I was in a smaller group, but I heard it with my ears. He said, when I first got to CBS, I wasn't the Madden that they were expecting, and I needed reps, and I needed to learn my comfort zone. He said that one of the producers said to me one time, goes, John, when you were on the sideline, you were so demonstrative. You were so animated. Your body was into everything that you said and wanted to get across to your players. He said, I don't know that you're doing that during the broadcast. And John Madden said, at the time, he said, when I began to use my hands more and thought about not worrying about what people thought in the booth, but just was myself and was, animated and everything, that's when I became who I became. And I've always kind of remembered that little story. And now that I'm thinking about it, actually, we had been to an event in Summerall Madden, and I happened to be in their car going back to the hotel. So there weren't many people when he told this story. But he told it, and I've always remembered that. And so sometimes when you make a call, like a Jamal Murray half-court shot or a big play by Kobe or Michael or LeBron or whoever, sometimes you need to get up and force it physically, the word out of your mouth or the oomph that you need to make it really penetrate with the viewer or just the call. You don't think like, oh, I'm going to do this now, I can't wait. It's not written. It comes organically. And like you, I think I'm such a fan of the games that I'm doing that I guess I feel like it is. If I thought about it, like you said before, I'm not smart enough to think about the words or that. It kind of happens, and I kind of rely on that at this stage. After all, I've done so many games that I kind of rely on that background to help me get those kinds of calls up. And that's what happened. And Murray was right there when he took the shot, and he was right in front of our booth. And we're just in awe because it changed that game with that big shot, a little run by the Nuggets in that game. And he was right there and began to look at us and to punctuate the hit. And then his emotion, our camera guy caught the reaction, which was not planned clearly, but happened. But sometimes you need to do that physically to get those kind of calls out.
You mentioned the Nuggets. They look like they're back. Oklahoma City looks like it could be improved this year. The Western Conference is deep as maybe it's ever been with teams that are looking to at least make the postseason. From your perspective, the most interesting storyline going into this season to you is what?
Well, there are several, and I won't bore you with the list. Having just done the Knicks, I'm anxious with the coaching change, what that does, because I really thought that Tom Thibodeau did a terrific job and changed almost as the playoffs are going on by using his bench more. He had to, but he did. And I think that was a very compelling story. We've lost two gigantic people in this business, Halliburton and Tatum, because of injuries, and how those teams respond to that, I think, is a fascinating story. Clearly, what Daigneault is doing with the Thunder, their culture, keeping big names paid and happy and performing with like so much youth on his side, and just the job that Sam Presti does. There are a lot of general managers out there that are doing things, and I would agree with you on Denver. They've added around a good core, and I think bolstered it and made it better. I'm really excited to see what Denver does, because they're clearly in that window of let's cash in while we got these generational players, including one of the best centers of all time. Let's see, let's continue to feed the beast here. But Oklahoma City to me continues to be just like they've done it in a small market with a genius at general manager. He's done it again. Presti has. The coach is is forward thinking and defensive minded and adjustment prone. And like all these things are what you need in your coach and a young voice to that team. And then there are the smattering of other stories. Can Minnesota regain what they had? And just all these different things. That's what's so great about the league is just what you see from year to year, changes and movements. The Antetokounmpo, like where is he going to? I know he's back, and they've got to, they've been Turner, and I get that, but where there's a lot of noise about, where he may go, and I hate that we can't just rest on where they are now and let them kind of breathe in that space as they've tried to restructure things in Milwaukee. So there are many things that to me are captivating going into this season.
Transactional league, Kevin.
It
always
is.
Will be a transactional league. Just, before I let you go, as I said, I'm a huge fan of your work and your ability to turn any moment into a big one, even the ones that don't have anything to do with sports. Like I love the Black Cat on the field, one of my favorites, the fan on the field, your ability to turn the mundane into something compelling is really quite the gift that you have. I'm wondering if you could do something for me. I was thinking to myself, like, what is the most mundane activity that Kevin Harlan could make interesting? Could you give me a call of Kevin Harlan filing his tax return?
With a stack of receipts in front and with a pen in hand and questions in his brain, here we go, attacking my 2025 tax return. Where can I sign something off? Where can I cut a corner? How do I stay within the lines, but somehow find a way to reduce the number that I owe? These are the things that right now hold dear to me as I sit in front of numbers and things that I don't even completely comprehend. But by God, we're going to go into it head first. And here we go with the pen hitting the paper. Let's begin to fill all this out.
That's outstanding. Outstanding. You've got me. I am ready to run to H&R Block right now and start my next tax return, Kevin. Kevin, I do appreciate your time, man. I'm glad to see you back on the sidelines with Amazon this season. It's going to be a great year for everybody involved, and I appreciate you taking some time to join me.
I am beyond grateful to be a part of the NBA still. So great to meet you like this. As I said, as we started, I've admired and read you from afar. Good luck with your NBC stuff and being a part of the NBA. And people are going to see now a face to what they've read for so long in NBA terms. And it's a new world, isn't it? Streaming and new partners and a new way of doing business and covering this dynamic league. I mean, I cannot wait for the start. It's right around the corner, and it will be fun to read your stories and share these experiences with all NBA fans as we go into a new season.
Absolutely. Look forward to catching up on the court, Kevin.